The king who ruled Egypt at age 9 in a throne room was silent. Golden pillars stretched toward the ceiling. Priests whispered ancient prayers. Soldiers stood still as stone. And at the center of it all stood a child, barely 9 years old. His name was Tutankhamun. And in that moment, he became Pharaoh of Egypt. Think about that. At an age when most children are learning how to write, how to play, how to dream, this boy was handed an empire. Not a small kingdom, not a quiet village, but one of the greatest civilizations the world had ever known. Egypt was powerful, wealthy, feared. Its armies marched across lands. Its temples touched the sky. Its people believed their ruler was not just a king, but a living God. And now that God was a boy, a kingdom in chaos. But this was not a peaceful inheritance. Before Tutankhamun came to power, his father, Pharaoh Akhenaten, had made a bold and dangerous decision. He abandoned Egypt's traditional gods and declared that the people would worship only one, Aten, the sun disk. Temples were shut down. Priests lost power. Ancient traditions were erased. The capital city was even moved. To some, it was revolutionary. To many, it was betrayal. By the time the 9-year-old Tutankhamun stepped onto the throne, Egypt was divided. The people were uncertain. The priests were angry. The empire was fragile. Didn't just inherit a crown, he inherited a crisis. The boy who listened imagined being 9, surrounded by generals, priests, politicians, all older, all experienced, all powerful. It would have been easy to be a puppet, easy to be controlled, easy to fade into history. But something remarkable happened. Under Tutankhamun's rule, guided by wise advisors, yes, but bearing his royal authority, Egypt returned to its roots. The old gods were restored. The temples reopened. The capital was moved back. Order slowly returned. Even his name changed. He had originally been called Tutankhaten, living image of Aten. But he became Tutankhamun, living image of Amun. It was more than a name change. It was a statement. It told the people, we remember who we are. And sometimes, leadership isn't about making the loudest change. Sometimes, it's about restoring balance. A short life, a lasting issue. Tutankhamun ruled for about 9 years. He began as a child king and died as a teenager around 18 or 19 years old. His death remains a mystery even today. Some say illness, some say injury, some whisper conspiracy. But there were no grand conquests, no epic wars, no towering monuments bearing his name. In fact, compared to other pharaohs, his reign seemed small. He was buried quietly in the Valley of the Kings. His tomb was modest. Compared to the great rulers before him, history could have forgotten him. But destiny had other plans. The discovery that shocked the world. Fast forward over 3,000 years. The sands of Egypt had swallowed kingdoms. Empires had risen and fallen. The world had changed beyond recognition. Then in 1922, a British archaeologist named Howard Carter made a discovery that would electrify the world. Hidden beneath the desert sands lay Tutankhamun's tomb, almost completely untouched by grave robbers. When Carter first peered inside and was asked what he saw, he famously replied, "Wonderful things, gold, chariots, jewelry, thrones, weapons, statues." And at the center, the golden burial mask of the boy king shining as if time itself had preserved it. While many greater pharaohs had their tombs looted and forgotten, this child king, whose reign seemed ordinary, became the most famous pharaoh in history. Not because he conquered nations, but because his story survived. The lesson hidden in the sand shows the powerful truth. Tutankhamun did not live long. He did not rule for decades. He did not build the biggest monuments. Yet his name echoes across thousands of years. Why? Because leadership is not measured only by time. It's measured by impact. At 9 years old, he stepped into responsibility most adults would fear. He ruled during chaos. He restored stability. And though he was young, underestimated, and surrounded by giants, he stood where destiny placed him, and he endured. For anyone who feels too young, this is more than an ancient story. It's a reminder you are never too young to carry responsibility, never too small to stand in big rooms, never too inexperienced to make meaningful change. The world may look at you and see your age, but history might look at you and see your courage. A 9-year-old once ruled the greatest empire of his time, and though his life was short, his legacy became eternal. Sometimes the smallest shoulders carry the heaviest crowns, and sometimes that is exactly what makes them unforgettable.